May I speak with the breath of God from the Word of God in the name of God. Amen. Please be seated. Anywhere you like. There's lots of choices. You could see the glass is half empty or the glass is half full, or you could see the glass is too big, right? That's my choice. The glass is too big, and in this case, there's too many chairs because we set these up for Easter, and turns out last Easter Sunday we needed them, right? I mean, not every single chair was full, but it was nice to have this many chairs last Sunday. But we didn't come in and then make the glass smaller again for this Sunday, which is probably smart and probably something I should have paid attention to, because second Sunday of Easter can be like that. And it's like whiplash almost. You go through all of this. I mean, even Palm Sunday is kind of a big deal, and there's all this activity and everything looks different, especially from Lent into Palm Sunday. And then you got Maundy Thursday and Good Friday and the Easter Vigil and Sunday morning, and all of these things look so different from one another, and it culminates in this big to-do. We had 63 people here last Sunday, which is the most I've ever seen in this room. And so you're kind of buzzing from this and got the energy, and we got to meet a lot of new people, and we got to be joined by loved ones, and it's this amazing time. And then second Sunday of Easter. And if I start to bore you, you can lie down across any one of these rows of seats, take a quick snooze. I could probably use one. Maybe you could too. But that's okay. You have climax and you have anticlimax. It's inhale, exhale. There's a rhythm to it. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And we see it in the life, and we get to kind of follow the life of the disciples too. And our story can align with their story as we read, if we're paying attention to it. But it can also be a challenge because it's not, I know I think about attendance and I think about numbers and stuff like that. I try not to overdo it. But this is where my head is at, among other places. But this is not all there is. When we walk through the story of Lent and the story of Holy Week and the Triduum and Easter, hopefully, we're filled with hope for something more than just how many people are in these chairs. We're filled with hope for the world. We're filled with hope for our own lives. But then we look out the door, and turns out Easter Sunday did not bring about a ceasefire in Gaza. Easter Sunday did not bring about the Russian forces laying down their arms against the Ukrainians. It did not bring about an end to all gun violence, an end to all clinical anxiety or depression, or an end to poverty. All of these things. And it probably didn't bring an end to whatever you're struggling with in your life, whether that's an illness or an injury, or whether that is financial issues or relational issues. You don't come to Easter and then just like, boom, it's all done. Because if that happened, it would have happened many Easters ago, right? So we're left with this question, this big question in our minds, like, okay, it was Lent, it's now Easter. What changed? The church changed, the colors changed. We didn't have these flowers here before. I wasn't wearing this before. But what's changed in the world? What's changed in my life? And it's hard to answer that question. And therein lies a spiritual challenge that we struggle with, and hopefully, at a minimum, we can struggle with that change together. But I think the lectionary does guide us in this a bit. It helps us out. It shows us what the disciples were dealing with in these moments after the resurrection. And we see Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of James, and Salome. We see these women who follow Jesus so devotedly coming to the tomb and then being blown away by this revelation. Jesus is alive. So they run back as they're instructed by the angel. They run back to tell the guys. And they come in and they say, the most amazing news. You won't believe it. And so they spill the beans and they tell what's happened. And how do the men respond? Remember? Hallelujah, Christ is risen! Right? And they break out the hymns. And they are just immediately thrilled and they throw a big party. No, they don't do that. They do virtually nothing. They're still afraid. They're not fully believing, right? They're probably gaslighting the women, and we still do that sometimes. Sorry, ladies. We're working on that. They don't believe the witness, or at least they don't believe it deeply enough so that it affects it, so that it banishes the fear, so it banishes that anxiety. And so when it's time for Jesus to show up, the doors are locked. They have locked themselves in. They have locked the world out. Who have they not locked out? Jesus. They haven't locked Jesus out. He's not troubled by this. He comes right in through the walls or whatever. He just appears. And they're like, whoa, maybe the women were telling the truth. Here he is. But they were huddling in fear. And even that experience of receiving the breath of Jesus, receiving the Spirit, that experience of having Jesus right there with them still doesn't quite do it. And it certainly doesn't do it for Thomas because he's not there at all. And Thomas is like our poster boy for that first week of Easter, for the second Sunday of Easter, because Thomas is struggling the most. And he gets that nickname Doubting Thomas, which isn't really fair, is it? But he's the one who he needs the evidence. He says, I got to be honest with you. I have to see the reality. I have to feel it with my hands. He's very tactile. He's very visceral. But he's not even present the first time. Who knows why? He may have been struggling with doubt more than the rest of them. But a week later, so the day that aligns with this, the second Sunday of Easter, Thomas is at least present. He's heard enough of the news to say, all right, fine. I'll come. I'll just come, and maybe Jesus will show up again, and maybe you're right. Maybe not. But even when he's there, and Jesus is there, and I have to touch, I have to feel, I have to know. And Jesus, what does Jesus do? Does he get angry? He's like, how dare you doubt me? After all we've been through, get out. That's not it either, is it? Jesus says, yeah, come and see. Come and feel. Put your hand here. Put your finger here. I'm real. This is really happening. But not everybody is going to get what you have right now. And I think he's talking about us. We're not necessarily going to get to feel that with our fingers, with our hands, that Jesus is risen, that there is hope and there is life after death. And Jesus says, blessed are those who believe anyway. But he doesn't say, shame on you for doubting. He doesn't say it to Thomas. He doesn't say it to us. So we're in that position here of looking at what has changed. Has nothing changed? What was all of that about? Why did we invite those musicians to come Saturday night and then the guitarist on Sunday morning? Why did we buy these flowers? What is all of this about? Are we just spinning our wheels? Are we just treading water? Or is something different? We're asking that question just like the disciples were asking that question. And remember, Jesus was not bothered by that locked door. It didn't affect him. But you notice what else he did not do. He didn't have to unlock it for himself. He also didn't unlock it for the disciples. He appeared and he disappeared. And what he left behind was a door that was still locked. And what doors have we allowed to remain locked? And we're getting metaphorical here, but we may be talking about doors within our own hearts, doors within our relationships, doors within our finances, doors within our calling or our vocation, or the way that we interact with the world. Is our life full of locked doors for fear of what's out there? Are we just trying to huddle together and to maintain what little is left of our lives? I do that a lot. And in so doing, I can completely understand the disciples and I can completely understand Thomas. We're just like, what are we waiting for? We're huddling behind locked doors and look at what's going on. Even after that first time that Jesus showed up, they waited a whole week with the door still locked. And he had to come again with Thomas there to finally convince them that there's something new. Behold, I am doing something new. Do you not perceive it? And I'm going to give myself a mulligan from last week's sermon. I'm going to give myself one more chance to look at that word from Isaiah. I wasn't planning to do this, but I was wishing I'd said it last week, so I'm going to say it now. When Isaiah quotes the Lord saying, behold, I am doing something new, do you not perceive it? Notice the difference between the word perceive and the word believe. Do you not believe it? Okay, I'm trying, God. I'm trying to believe. We're looking at war. We're looking at economic hardship. We're looking at illness and death. I'm trying really hard to believe. But God says, perceive it. See where it is already happening. I don't think Jesus is asking us to believe anything ethereal, anything out there and mysterious. If you can believe something mysterious, that's kind of a bonus. That's good, because there's a lot of that. But Jesus says, don't even worry about that. Just believe in what you can put your hands on. Believe in what's happening right here in this place. And I wish I could have been there yesterday, but I've seen the photos. Because I'll give you an example, and we'll close with that. Raise your hand if you were here making sandwiches yesterday. Yeah, that's... Don't be shy, Roy. How many were there? 10, 11? 11. Including Elijah? 11 plus Elijah. Elijah didn't make a sandwich? He was here, and he got to witness it, and he got to perceive it. In his 1-year-old mind, his 1-year-old understanding of things, he got to be a part of God doing a new thing that is not mysterious. It's not out there in the ether somewhere. It is right in your hands. If you can't reach out and feel the wound on Jesus' side with your hands, if you can't reach out and feel the holes in his hands and in his feet, reach out and feel the bread and the peanut butter and the jelly and the meat and the cheese. Feel that. God is doing a new thing. And be inspired by the reading from Acts, this first reading. Normally our first reading is from the Old Testament. In this season we're reading from Acts, so we're getting an extra saturation of Acts, those of us who are in the Bible study at 9 o'clock. What does it say they did? It says they pooled their resources so that no one would be in need. They did something very practical. They made sure that that nobody went hungry. They made sure that nobody went without a roof over their head. They reached out there with their hands and they worshiped God by meeting a need. And my hope is that we see more of that here in the coming months, because we have this thing called a clergy discretionary fund. That's one small part of it. Outreach in general, outreach with the necessity pantry is huge. And we all know about that, and we talk about it as often as we can, but there is more. There are sandwiches for the homeless. There is Debbie and Rusty have not been well enough to be with us on Sunday mornings, but has been this agent of change with those who are without housing in our community, and has organized these opportunities for us to worship with our hands. And more going forward, our plan, and we've talked about it as a vestry, we're going to hopefully implement it here soon, maybe this week, is to take what little discretionary funds that we have and to put that towards helping each other. We have a system in place that we're developing. I think the quarterly meeting would be a good time to talk about that and maybe put it in motion. That opportunity for you to reach out and say, I have a need, and it's a little embarrassing to talk about. So I'm going to put it in this double-blind form for it to be considered. So I don't have to know who you are. Your friends don't necessarily have to know who you are, but church leadership can make a decision. Yes, we can meet that need. And hopefully we say yes a lot. But that'll depend on all of us working together as a community. Knowing that Jesus is going to come and is going to be present with us. Jesus is going to breathe on us and say, receive the Spirit. and he's going to say things like, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. But one thing Jesus is not going to do is unlock that door. He is asking us to do it. And I am excited about this conversation. All the ways working together that we're going to unlock those doors and perceive how God is doing